All right, good evening, everybody. For the record, Thursday, June 10th, 2021, time for the regular meeting of the Wenatchee City Council, 5:15 p.m. We always start with the pledge to our flag, so Councilmember Kulas, would you lead us?
Yes, would you please rise? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Councilmember Kulas. For roll call this evening, we have 5 council members present. Councilmember Harold and Esparza are excused this evening. First item on our agenda, consent items, which includes approval of this evening's agenda, the vouchers, and the minutes from the previous meeting. So I'd entertain a motion if we had one.
Your Honor, I'd make a motion that we adopt the consent items that would include this evening's agenda, the vouchers, and minutes from previous meetings.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Kulas, second by Councilmember Cuevas, to adopt this evening's consent items, including the agenda, vouchers, and the minutes from our previous meetings. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Our next item on our agenda is a citizen comment. If any member of the audience would wish to address the council on any item that's either not on the agenda or something that comes to their mind. If you're here for the public hearing item, we'll take public testimony then. Anybody wish to address the council? Seeing no takers. We have one action item this evening and we have one public hearing item. So our first action item is regarding a budget amendment for the 2021 year. First of 2 that we generally do. Finance Director Rosenjack, it's all yours.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. As the Mayor said, we've got a budget amendment. It's the first of, we've been typically doing 2 the last few years. We do one in spring and then one in fall before the council sessions wind down. Legally, when we adopt the budget, we don't normally know everything that's going to happen the following year because we start working on the budget in July. The budget gets adopted in November, and we don't quite know what's going to happen in the following year at that point in time. So as things come up, Finance Committee reviews them and approves them. So all of the items that are, all of the budget amendments on here are items that Finance Committee has reviewed and approved. And so to make sure that the city stays within their legal budget authority as prescribed by the RCWs, we ask council update the 2021 budget. Have any questions for me?
So we went through this at the Finance Committee today, so these are all issues that the Finance Committee dealt with. You want to, obviously the coronavirus money is in here, so that deposit happened last week?
Yes, yeah, we received the coronavirus fiscal recovery funds from the federal government. So we got 3.1, almost 3.2 million the first week of June, and we should get another the same amount in June of 2022 as well. And so this basically, because these funds were not anticipated when the budget was built, we needed to add both the revenue and the expense, and we're even creating a new fund when we're doing this.
And I'll ask the same question that I asked at the Finance Committee on Exhibit A, when you have the beginning fund balance of $7.5 million. That was an estimate from last year's budget. It's actually probably closer to 11 or 10.
Yeah,
Okay.
it was actually, 11.4.
Okay.
And so, and as we explained to Finance Committee, legally we have to do the appropriations column, that is the expenses, and the revenue we typically do just because oftentimes if we build a budget for our expenses, but we don't build the budget or increase the budget for our revenue, then that ending fund balance column ends up looking negative. And so this, there's no real need to adjust the beginning fund balances. And so we typically haven't done that.
Right. Any other questions for Brad? If not, I would entertain a motion, and this will require all of us to vote yes on because it requires the passage of a majority plus one, which would be 5, and we only have 5 council members here this evening.
Your Honor, I make a motion, the city council to adopt ordinance number 2021-19, amending the 2021 budget as adopted by ordinance number 2020-31, revoking, recalling, or decreasing all or a portion of the total appropriations provided for, entering findings that ordinance is in the best interest of the city, and requiring that this ordinance be approved by a majority plus one of the entire council.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Hornby, second by Councilmember Bailey, to adopt ordinance 2021-19, amending the 2021 budget as adopted by ordinance 2020-31, revoking, recalling, or decreasing all or a portion of total appropriations provided for, entering findings that this ordinance is in the best interest of the city, and requiring that this ordinance be approved by a majority plus one of the entire council. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brad. We have one public hearing item tonight. This is regarding adoption of the Shoreline Master Plan. And so looks like that Stephen Noonschwander has turned into Glenn DeVries. And so Glenn, we will turn it over to you. So for public hearing items, we'll hear from staff. We'll then ask questions of staff. We'll turn it over to the members of the audience who wish to make a public comment, and then back over to the council for any action I might be willing to take. So Mr. DeVries, we'll turn it over to you.
Great, thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. On May 13th, we held a public hearing on the adoption of amendments to the City of Wenatchee Shoreline Master Program required as part of our periodic update. Steve Neuenschwander did a presentation on those updates, and we, on conclusion of that presentation, we requested a continuance to this evening for the purposes of catching up with a determination of consistency from the Department of Ecology. It's part of their process to verify that they concur with all of the amendments and that our master program is consistent with the provisions of the Shoreline Management Act and the Washington Administrative Code. They only had one minor modification. They wanted us to keep our definition of development that we had in our 2014 current Shoreline Master Program, and not amend it, which is, not a big deal. So it's really, staff did a great job along with the consultants, I believe, in putting together an update that meets the requirements of ecology. Only have one minor comment of that nature. So great work. So since we already did a presentation on the 13th, we we certainly can provide any information, respond to any questions you have, but staff would recommend that you move to adopt Resolution 2021-23, adopting the periodic amendments to the City of Wenatchee Shoreline Master Program. And I stand for any questions you have.
So Glenn, I have been following fairly closely the county's Shoreline Master Plan adoption with respect to issues around Lake Wenatchee and Lake Chelan and other places. But as far as the city's concerned, I mean, we've got a portion of the Columbia River and a little bit of the Wenatchee Rivers or other stuff in the shorelines that.
Yeah, we didn't have, really the biggest change that this master program has in it is that in 2018, if you recall, the City of Wenatchee updated its critical area requirements. And so we, in this update, there's a requirement that we have an equal or greater level of protection for our critical areas under the Growth Management Act and our shorelines. And so what this process has done, it's brought in our update requirements that we did for geologic hazardous areas, aquifer recharge, wetlands, fish and wildlife habitat, and I'm missing one. Catch them all, Mark? So it takes all of our critical area components.
Okay.
And it integrates them, with the exception that we already had a detailed provisions for shoreline buffers. And so those did not change with this update, but everything else is now integrated. Great cooperation by Fish and Wildlife and support by the Department of Ecology. The PUD had a minor change in the program that they wanted on component, but really good support, good coordination, and I feel like we have a good proposal for you to consider tonight.
Glenn, so I remember correctly, this time around, there was a kind of a different process that was set up by Ecology that streamlined this process. Am I correct on that?
You're correct. So what happened previously is Ecology held their own public hearing. In this process, they're relying on our public hearing. The reason that we had to continue was they were backlogged on folks doing these updates, and even though we coordinated with them on a time frame for our last public hearing date, they've been great to work with. They just couldn't get it to us by then, and we needed this determination of consistency to make sure going forward in our adoption that we were okay.
Yeah. So in your opinion, the new system worked
Yeah,
worked better than it has in the past?
I agree. Yes, I think not having a coordinated, consolidated hearing process makes a lot of sense for the public and everybody involved.
Good, thank you.
All right, any questions for Glenn? All right, any members of the audience wish to address the city council on this public hearing item regarding the adoption of the shoreline management plan? Seeing no takers, I will turn it over to the council for any action they may be willing to take.
Your Honor, I make a motion that we adopt resolution number 2021-33, adopting the City of Wenatchee Shoreline Master Program update, including the new shoreline jurisdiction boundaries and environmental designation maps, and repealing the existing shoreline master program.
Second. Motion by Councilmember Huffaker, second by Councilmember Kulas to adopt resolution 2021-33, adopting the City of Wenatchee Shoreline Master Program update, including the new shoreline jurisdiction boundaries and environment designation maps, and repealing the existing shoreline master program. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Glenn.
Thank you.
As I said, we have a short report tonight. Laura, you want to help me with the mayor's report? Remember what I was supposed to say? So, yeah, just a quick update. I think Apple Blossom's been going really well. We've had, although when we announced that the carnival was going to be at Lincoln Park, we got quite a few comments from some of the neighbors, but we've had no comments during the week. I've been out 3 times now. I was out yesterday about 6:30. There was 2 baseball games going on at the 2 baseball diamonds there and the carnival, and there was plenty of parking everywhere. So I feel like that's gone pretty well. Darcy has reported that.
I actually did get a comment from a neighbor who thought it actually worked pretty darn well, all things considered.
Good.
They were pleasantly pleased.
I think they get used to Festival Mexicanos, and sometimes that Saturday will bring 5, 6, 7,000 people there for the concert versus, many hundreds of people circulating, during a 4 or 5 hour period. So I think they were thinking it was going to be that, and it wasn't.
They got scared.
What's that?
They got scared.
Yeah. So anyhow, and again, the Darcy says the food component's doing very well. I'm breaking most of the records. So I think overall, I was at the all-service club luncheon yesterday and felt like normal. Servers were wearing masks. Nobody else was in the room, and so again, it sort of felt like it was going pretty well. I do see a few chairs out, so we're finally to get a few of those out for what is the combination of the children's parade and the regular parade for Saturday. So. Yeah, so you probably got an email regarding a hard hat tour of the Marriott Residence Inn. So they'd like us to come down. I actually did a apple dessert tasting contest last Saturday. So got to judge. Now they weren't apple pies, they were apple desserts. So there was baked apple, there was apple fries, there was apple cheesecake, there was apple chai cake. There was all kinds of different choices. But Charlotte Mayo is the general manager down there, so she invited us to a tour. So it'll probably show up on your calendar here for a month or so down the road. Yeah, so I think if there was the transportation budget that was announced, or the bill to further transportation was announced on Monday, and under these earmark provisions, we've told you in the past that every week we were getting asked for other projects for other things. So in the current bill, the way it's drafted, there's $8.6 million for the pedestrian connection on both sides of the river from the pedestrian bridge, both for the East Wenatchee side and the Wenatchee side. So if that bill ever gets through Congress, they ever can agree on anything back there. But currently, and it's one of the larger ones in the country in terms of what was put in that budget. So we have not heard on infra yet. We sort of expect sometime on a Thursday, Friday. Laura was betting it was this week. So we have not heard that it's this week. So maybe it's next week. We don't know. So we are continuing to keep our fingers crossed on that. But I get up every morning and my first Google search is Infra 2021 awards. Just keep thinking that, not that we will certainly hear, I think, by a phone call, but what I'm mostly trying to figure out is if they've announced them without us in it, right? That's sort of, so I keep checking every morning. That's it? Okay. I think just from a economic development, again, it was nice to get the money for the ARP money. The Finance Committee today awarded some money to the Town Toyota Center, so we're going to get a little bit of money out to them to help with their reopening. They have when they're going full throttle, they have about 150 employees per month, a lot of part-time, cooks and folks out parking and concessions, and they're down to 7, and they're expecting hockey games in a couple months. So we're going to help get them where they can start hiring people and get them trained and feel like when you have another experience there, it feels good. So thought that was a great use of the ARP money, so I'll thank the Finance Committee for that. And I think we've obviously seen some sales tax numbers that have been really good, and looks like the Triad developers probably have some national builders coming in, someone who'll build maybe as many as 60 to 70 houses a year. So hopefully I get that banged out pretty quickly, not putting dust on Keith's house, but it sounds like that's going to go pretty quickly if everything works out well. And I think there's lots of good things still going on in our community in terms of building, and so nice to have apple blossom. It was just nice to see smile on people's faces yesterday. So that's really all I have. Council members, anything for the good of the order?
Somewhat back to normal. I mean,
Pretty
it's
close.
restricted, but
Yeah.
everybody, we have quite a few guests showing up from out of town for apple blossom.
Someone told me the hotels are full this weekend, or close to filled.
We had, I want to say it was close to 100 people from out of town for
Okay.
Applerians festivals.
So are they bringing
banquet.
out-of-town floats and bands and stuff, or is it mostly going to be local?
Out of town as well.
Okay,
Yep.
good.
I think 80s some odd. I think the last float was going to be the 87th entry, so I
Okay.
think there was somewhere around 90.
Okay,
But yeah, a lot of out-of-town floats as well. Deer Park and
good,
Prosser and Rosarians will be here. So,
good. I was having a glass of wine on my front porch probably Tuesday night when the Golden Apple Marching Band came by practicing right in front of our house. Always a treat to have the band come by right in front. So that was pretty fun.
We missed that from Castle Rock.
Yes, yeah. Good to see them out practicing their wares, so.
So solid waste met this week. It looks like Ecology is actually going to give us some money for a couple of years and
For operations?
For operations and a little bit of discretion there. So that's part of the discussion, was trying to figure out how to use it. Probably the bulk of it will go towards the moderate waste facility.
Okay.
Still haven't been able to convince Douglas County to join us on that. So we're still, Chelan County and the cities within are still bearing the brunt of the cost.
Okay.
2020 kind of slowed things down somewhat, but now they're coming back quite a bit. So the expense of running it is still needs to be tweaked a little bit because it's still kind of expensive to run. As you can imagine, the disposal of all that is part of the big expense, but then just having trained staff there that knows what to do when dangerous chemicals come in.
Still a
and so on.
fantastic program to think of all of this oils and things we brought there or communities brought there isn't going into other parts of our ecological system is pretty cool.
And I think I've mentioned it once before, they now have a little program that if you bring in paints that are still good, they put them on a shelf. And if you're interested in some paint, you can come pick it up off the shelf and blend a few colors and
Oh, cool.
come up with a color that works for you.
Kind of like Operation Petticoat.
There you go. There you go. Yeah, so that was good news that ecology was freeing up some money for us. So.
Good.
Community Action Council board meeting yesterday, gearing up to, discussed in Finance Committee today, but gearing up for the distribution of the getting money in the hands of people that are behind on their rent and utilities and those kinds of things. So we've added some staff to take on that workload, and so that money is going to be getting out into the hands of people that need it. And then on Tuesday, the Community Action Council, and basically Ellen Walker put together a luncheon for the National Guard folks that were doing the food distribution there, and really quite a amazing bunch of guys and gals. There were a handful that have about 420 days on deployment there, so it almost from start to finish, and they'll be done. They'll wrapping up and leaving the end of this month.
Okay.
But tremendous amount of effort that went into making sure that an awful lot of food got distributed. It was kind of interesting because you got the military folks come in. These are all logistics, guys know how to move stuff.
Yeah.
And they kind of moved in and took a look at the thing and said, we've got some suggestions here.
Yeah.
And it didn't take long for them to get things organized and really moving material.
Yep.
So it was a good time there, and so yeah. I just want to relay one thing that just kudos to our community because there were a number of people. I sat with a bunch of the service guys and guardsmen at lunch there, and there were numerous comments about how well they were received and how well they were treated here by our community. There were even some of them said, even think about moving here, and that followed up. So I had follow-up questions to that comment, and they said, yeah, I said some of the units that have been deployed in other parts of the state have not been very well received by the communities.
Yeah.
And that disturbed me. I mean, what? So at any rate, congratulations to our community for doing a good job of looking after these folks and taking care of them.
Good. It's good to hear. And they did yeoman's work and a lot of work, and not only between delivering food and all that, but running the vaccination sites and some of the National Guard folks that were down there helping. So overall, yeah, well done.
I last week participated in the police tactic training.
Oh, how'd that go?
It went fabulous. We have patrols from all over the counties. We had from Okanagan, Douglas, Grant, Ellensburg, King County, and the training was fabulous. There's new terms, new vocabulary words that they have to process during their on patrol duty. So it's a little different than what they're doing now.
Yeah.
And kudos to them. It's an awesome training.
Yeah. And Chief will be here, I think it's next week, to go over, or soon, all the different laws that have been passed by our friends in Olympia and how it affects the police department and how it affects their training and what they can and can't do. And so you'll get an eye opener from the chief next Thursday. So and then I think there'll be an ask for some money at some point in terms of training and trying to figure out how to adopt all these new rules and regulations that they're being asked to work through. And then I think I'll say one other thing, the Public Facility District or the Town Toyota Center is going to probably start the process of refinancing their bonds. They're at the 10-year mark, you can go. We're a little early on the 10-year mark, but I think we'll be starting the process to do the refinance here pretty quick. And last net present value savings I saw was about $7.5 million. Because interest rates are quite a bit lower, and obviously the sales tax that's coming in to pay those bonds has done well. So we'll actually get the bonds rated this time. So we're anxious to get a better interest rate and get some money set aside for some capital improvements in that building when they're needed. So, all right, anything else for the good of the order? Everybody, yeah, go ahead, Mark.
Association of Washington Cities Legislative Committee met virtually today. We'll meet again in July for kind of recapping the 2021 session and getting ready for the 2022 session. I see in our study session next week that Chief Crown is going to address legislation dealing with the public safety, which was a considerable part of our discussion today about legislation that had passed and legislation that will be continuing. We also talked a little bit about the Growth Management Act amendments that were made but not funded, and a few other issues before we developed a 2022 package. At some point, visit the Wenatchee Valley Museum and Cultural Center to take a look at the new community space and exhibit area on the main floor. I'd recommend doing it sooner rather than later because the tomfoolery exhibit that has a large part of the old Wenatchee Cycle and Toy is there.
Okay.
And you get to see all the toys and bikes that, you know, I made the comment, it's kind of rough when you see your toys and your bikes in a museum. Signals something. But it is a very nice space that, and very good use of the monies that were appropriated by the legislature, and probably are a good success that may lead to additional funding opportunities for the Museum and Cultural Center.
Good. And they do a remarkable job, and nice to be able to support them and help them. And all right, anything else for the good of the order? If not, have a great Apple Blossom weekend, and we'll see you next Thursday where the Chief of Police will get you updated on all the new legislation. So we're adjourned.